Right, UFC 296, Edwards versus Covington, and I have to not pick fights with emotion, and I'm not going to. And the first fight, Randy Brown versus Muslim Salikhov. I'm going with Randy Brown to win the fight via decision, and I think over 1.5 rounds is what it will be. Because Muslim Salikhov, what we've seen from him is, if he didn't have the "of" in the name, people wouldn't really rate him at all. All he does is look to target that body and then come up to the head. But because Randy Brown does a lot of lateral movement, trying to throw those spinning kicks to the body, in my opinion, will not work. And Randy Brown's got that extremely long reach. He's a much taller guy than him. He can just go out there and just jab him in the face. But the only thing I'd worry about Brown is fight IQ. That can be a problem. Like, he can do very well in the first round. Like, even against Madalena, I know it didn't end well for him. Like, the first 1.5 minutes, he can start off quite well by jabbing you, keeping you at range. But as the fight goes on, he fades. And that's what I'm worried about in this fight. He might start off very well jabbing the head, and then all of a sudden in the third round, Muslim starts to clinch. And if he can work the elbows like Wellington Turman did, he could cause a few problems. But I have to be honest with you, I think Randy Brown should get it done via decision by using that jab and sticking behind it. Shamil Gaziev versus Martin Buday. This fight, I'm going with Gaziev. And I know he's new to the company, but just watching this guy fight and watching Martin Buday fight, I think this is a bad matchup for him. And I think it'll be under 2.5 rounds. And I think Shamil Gaziev will get a finish. And I'm going to say he's going to TKO Martin Buday on the ground. Because with Martin Buday, he has fought absolute can crushers. He should have lost to Lucas Brzezinski from getting leg kicked. And I think Shamil Gaziev is going to test him and do what no other fighter has done with Martin Buday by shooting on him. You'll notice with Shamil Gaziev, in his fights, he usually starts off straight away rushing for that takedown. But one thing Martin Buday could do is use that very good clinch work he's got to prevent him from actually getting those hooks behind the leg and then slamming him down to the ground. And also, if it comes to striking, I know you'll see that Gaziev has had a few KOs, but I'm not going to sit here and say he's more technical at striking than Martin Buday. Martin Buday's got a very good dirty boxing style, whereas Shamil Gaziev's got a more raw, slow but powerful striking where if he can connect with you with that right hand, he can put you down, compared to Buday, who he doesn't really knock you out. Like, he can hurt you with a flurry of punches, but he's not really a knockout artist. And Shamil Gaziev can be on the feet. Fili versus Lucas Almeida. In my opinion, this fight is going to end in the first or second round. I would do, again, under 2.5. And I do think Fili is going to win this fight via KO. Lucas Almeida applies so much pressure that it could actually be detrimental. And Fili, very good counter striking. So if you see where I'm coming from, he throws very good counter hooks. Like we saw him drop Nathaniel Wood with that jab. We saw him counter him with a hook. Lucas Almeida comes into the pocket with a hook all the time, aggressively rushing you. So it's going to be a brawl type of fight. And I like what the matchmakers have done. But I think Fili, if he can get that jab working and he can beat him to that hook, I think Lucas Almeida is going to get dropped and potentially finished, because Fili isn't scared to go down to the ground. Like, if he drops you, yeah, Lucas Almeida has got some good jiu-jitsu, but Fili can do a bit of jiu-jitsu on the ground as well, and he can grapple. So I think he won't be scared to do it, and he'll end up winning via KO in the second round. And when I say he can do a bit of jiu-jitsu, I don't mean like he's going to go out there and submit him, but he's not scared to be on the ground with these jiu-jitsu type of fighters. Tagir Ulanbekov versus Cody Durden. I'm actually going with Tagir to win the fight via submission, and I'm going to tell you why I'm picking submission and not a decision for Cody Durden. I want Cody Durden to win, but one thing I've noticed is he never keeps his chin tucked to his opponent's legs when he goes for like a double leg or a single leg, which leaves his neck open to guillotines. And if you watch the fight back with, who was his name? I've forgotten the name already. Jake Hadley. He got caught in neck chokes multiple times, and especially that guillotine. And there's a thing about these Dagestani fighters who have that like strong grip strength, and they've got these very good guillotine chokes, and Tagir Ulanbekov is one of them. And I think because Jake Hadley is nowhere near as strong at jiu-jitsu with them type of chokes compared to a guy like Ulanbekov, I think he's going to guillotine choke Cody Durden, and my pick for this fight would be a submission or decision for Tagir Ulanbekov in this fight. I don't see him KOing him because I see a time in the fight where Tagir goes to shoot for a takedown, he fails the takedown, then Cody Durden tries to shoot in his leg in a scramble attempt, but that ends up leaving his chin exposed because he doesn't tuck it in, and then he gets guillotine choked and then the fight ends. So yeah, submission or decision for Ulanbekov. Alonzo Menifield versus Dustin Jacoby. I've got to go with Dustin Jacoby to win the fight. And how is he going to do it? I think he's going to get a decision over Alonzo Menifield. So I would actually do over 1.5 in this fight because Alonzo Menifield, he doesn't rush forward. Well, he didn't in the last fight anyway. But against William Knight, you did see him do it a few times to try and get takedowns. And maybe he didn't do it because he was worrying about against Jimmy Crute. If he rushes in, he can get taken down over and over again. But I think because of that win he got recently against, what was his name? I keep forgetting it. Crute. He's going to be patient and fight like that, which is going to allow Dustin Jacoby to work the body with the jab and come down low to the legs and allow him to use counter-striking when Alonzo Menifield goes first. And I think because his footwork, he sometimes can go side to side and use a bit of lateral footwork and has got good counter-striking in the pocket, like rolling with punches. He might drop Alonzo Menifield, although you might think that Menifield's got the better chance, but Dustin Jacoby tends to do well against bigger guys who aren't as quick. Khalil Rountree is kind of quick, but he's not as quick as a guy like Jacoby, which is why he was able to outland him with the jab. And against, what was his name? Oh my god, my brain is all over the place. When he fought against Kennedy and Chukwueze, he was able to counter because he was pressuring fast. So Alonzo Menifield's going to have to watch out for that, because if he does do what I just said, run into the pocket, he might get countered and put down, even if he lands the first strike. Cody Garbrandt versus Brian Kelleher. In my opinion, you might laugh at this, I think they're going to go to a decision. Cody Garbrandt should be knocking him out, and I would go with over 1.5 rounds for this fight, because Brian Kelleher, he's very slow, he likes to telegraph a lot of the punches, but Cody Garbrandt fights like a scared man now, because he knows his chin is not good, and Brian Kelleher can pull off a KO every now and then if he can come up against a striker and not a grappler. If you look at a lot of the opponents he's been fighting, a lot of them recently have been a grappler, which makes it more of a favourable matchup for him. But I don't think he'll win, because I think the training with Ramsey Cooper has been helping Cody Garbrandt. We're seeing more kicks into the game. We're seeing him like shuffle with the feet. We're seeing him create angles with his striking that he didn't used to do before. And he's still got it, but the only thing that haunts him is his chin. And that's the only thing you have to worry about with him. Like, he will outstrike him with ease. He's quicker than him, he has more power than him. I would say he has better head movement than Brian Kelleher. But the only difference is Kelleher has a better chin than him. Kelleher's a very hard guy to finish. He's only been finished once in his career, and he's had loads of fights. So I think Cody Garbrandt has got the power to do it, but I think he fights a bit too scared to do it now. So I'm picking Cody Garbrandt to win via decision, but I would pick over 1.5 rounds for that fight. Right, Josh Emmett versus Bryce Mitchell. I'm going with Josh Emmett, I'm sorry. I believe Dan Ige beat Bryce Mitchell. He weren't given the win. Bryce Mitchell, from what I've seen, when he comes up against a guy who's got a good grappling base, he might struggle once he gets the takedown to do damage, because they're very good at scrambling. And with Josh Emmett, one argument you could make is he's fought a bunch of strikers, and he hasn't really fought many guys who have tried to test him in the grappling department, which is why this matchup is actually a weird one to kind of like pick. It's very hard because he could go out there and steamroll Bryce Mitchell in the first round, because he has that type of power, first round KO power. But I think Bryce Mitchell will eventually find the takedown in the fight, and I want to see how does he deal with the takedowns, with the scrambling, and get back up to his feet. Will he get back up to the feet as fast as Dan Ige? And remember, Dan Ige's got good scrambling abilities at times, because when you do jiu-jitsu, you're scrambling on the ground looking for different submission attempts, and that can help you with scrambling. Josh Emmett being a pure grappler with minimal to no jiu-jitsu, you don't really know what's going to happen on the ground, but I think on the feet, he's going to do more damage, and because Bryce Mitchell will not do any damage on the ground, and I don't think he'll submit him either. The only reason why Josh Emmett got submitted against Yair Rodriguez is because he decided, let me bring him down to the ground and commit in the guard. When Josh Emmett is on the ground with Bryce Mitchell, I think he's going to be looking for his way up being defensive compared to looking for like a finish or something on the ground and leaving yourself vulnerable to getting submitted by a grounded fighter. And I think this fight, I would avoid it. I wouldn't pick like something to happen. I know I'm saying here what would happen, but I wouldn't pick something because there's a lot of unknowns. Yeah, I think Josh Emmett's going to go out there and KO him, but it's not something I would put a thing on. So, yeah. I'm picking, even though Josh Emmett's like 11 years older. And remember, yeah, Ilia Topuria got him down when he was smashed 50-42 in like the last round. I don't really want to go into that because it's a 3-round fight and he's done very well in 3-minute fights. So I think he's going to end up KOing Bryce Mitchell because we know he throws a lot of kicks in the pockets sometimes and he can get countered and he doesn't really move his head. And I think he's got the power, not as much as Ilia Topuria, but he's got high-level power, so yeah. Vicente Luque versus Ian Garry. Unfortunately, I know you're not going to like it, but I'm going with Ian Garry to win the fight via KO. And I'm hoping he does not go into that fight emotional, because Vicente Luque could, if he wanted to, go out there and use that grapple-heavy approach and hold him against the cage and do what he did against, what was his name? I've forgotten his name already. Rafael dos Anjos, but remember, Rafael dos Anjos is a smaller guy. Ian Garry has a bit of that judo background to prevent him from the takedowns. They both kind of know what each other's habits are. And Ian Garry is going to start throwing a flurry of punches. And I've noticed Vicente Luque, after that brain injury that almost took him out of the sport, he's very patient now. Which can be a benefit when you come in against a grappler who offers no power or striking threat of damage. But if you're patient and you allow Ian Garry to go first, he can run right through you. Look at how he ran right through Daniel Rodriguez. I know they're two different fighters, but that's because you allow him to go first. And if you're patient, I don't see Vicente Luque using a very high IQ counter-striking game plan because he's not really known for having like a high fight IQ either. So Ian Garry, I think he's going to allow him to go first and then he's going to get into his flow state, maybe chop up the legs, and once he's chopped up the legs, that will take the sting out of Vicente Luque's movement, which is already non-existent in my opinion. And that will make him become more flat-footed, making it even easier for him to finish him. And I think he's going to end up beating him via KO. But I would not pick him to do it by KO. I would pick him, if you're going to put something on it, for him to do it just to win. Because I can't say whether it will be done in over 1.5. Because I can see him running right through him. Or maybe he's a bit patient, waits, and then takes his time. I don't know. So I'm going with just Ian Garry. Right, Paddy Pimblett versus Tony Ferguson. I'm sick and tired of picking Tony Ferguson. You cannot trust him anymore. Too old. Yeah, he's training with David Goggins, but I'm going with Paddy Pimblett. And what I would pick for this fight would be, I'm going to say KO, TKO or submission. I think there will be a finish in the fight. I don't think it's going to a decision. You notice with Tony Ferguson, every fight now, he has a moment. He's a moment fighter, but he can't capitalise on it. Whether he gets eye poked or whether he gets front kicked or something like that. I think Paddy Pimblett, you know what, I'm going to go with a bold thing here. I think he might KO Tony Ferguson. You know what? He is going to KO Tony Ferguson, I'm going to say. He's got a very kicking-based game plan. Tony Ferguson is not really tight and compact to his guard all the time. And I think he can leave that chin very open. And because Paddy Pimblett throws a lot of like jumping kung fu type of kicks, I can see him head kicking Tony Ferguson and knocking him out cold. And then finally, I don't think he'll retire, but I think Dana White will be like, that's enough now. The insurance bill is going to keep going up. If he carries on fighting, he's going to end up with severe CT to the point where he won't even be able to talk anymore. And it just don't make sense for him to fight. So I think Paddy Pimblett is going to KO him. And that sounds stupid to think. Back in the day, you would never think a guy like Paddy Pimblett could outstrike him. Because Paddy Pimblett is not a great striker. He leaves his chin wide open. But Tony Ferguson doesn't have the power to put him away. Yeah, he can drop him. But I don't think his jiu-jitsu is going to beat Paddy Pimblett on the ground either. If you drop him down to the ground, Paddy Pimblett is extremely good at jiu-jitsu. Like, his jiu-jitsu is elite in my opinion. Flying triangle chokes, judo throwing people down to the ground straight into like a rear naked choke, getting guillotines off takedowns from Jordan Levitt. Miles above Tony Ferguson. And he could even submit him because I believe he's stronger than Tony Ferguson. He could judo throw Ferguson and submit him just like that. Because we've seen that he's not a quitter, Tony Ferguson, but what he is old and washed up. So it's only logical to pick Paddy Pimblett, and I think Paddy Pimblett is going to KO him in this fight, unfortunately, and that will be the end. Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Stephen Thompson. Unfortunately, I want to pick Stephen Thompson. I can't. I'm picking Shavkat Rakhmonov, but I'm thinking, what's he going to do? You know what? I'm picking him to submit Stephen Thompson. I think he's going to be the guy to do it. We've seen how good Stephen Thompson's been at stopping people from submitting him. But if you look at it a lot of the time they're either striking with him or they're not really forcing a submission. Belal Muhammad tried to force it, he couldn't get it. But Shavkat Rakhmonov's jiu-jitsu is so unique and very creative, I think I can see him doing it. Plus, Shavkat Rakhmonov, I'm going to give you a hot take right here. His wrestling, getting the initial takedown is very bad. But when he gets that one takedown, he's very good at control on the ground and manoeuvring to take the back. And I saw he was fighting, I hope I don't butcher his name, Jason Jackson, the guy who just beat Yaroslav Amosov in Bellator. He's training with him. And his grappling looks good. I know it's only training, but I think he's going to find a way to submit Thompson because we know Thompson's takedown defense has not been good. Not only that, with Shavkat Rakhmonov, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt against Jeff Neal. Jeff Neal is extremely good at takedown defense, elite takedown defense. Stop takedowns from Shavkat, stop takedowns from Belal Muhammad, actually beating Belal Muhammad. And I think Shavkat Rakhmonov, in my opinion, against Wonderboy, is going to get that takedown eventually, whether it's from the clinch. I know Wonderboy's good at like bouncing on the toes. He could use those push kicks to get him away from him because Shavkat Rakhmonov has no head movement. He walks forward trying to throw punches straight, and against Wonderboy that's a bad strategy because he can just side kick you away, push you away from him, and then once he pushes you away, because you don't move your head, bounce right back into the pocket with a straight punch followed by a kick, and it could put him down. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to look to get that takedown early, get him against the cage, take his back, and get like a rear naked choke because you know what? Yeah, I don't think he's going to throw him down to the ground and submit him. I think he's going to get it off the cage again, but use the cage to get onto the back. Not actually set it up like he did against Jeff Neal. But that was very impressive, and I'm sorry, want Thompson to win, but I just don't think he will. Alex Pantoja versus Brandon Royval. I'm not even joking. I think this could be a bit like the Brandon Moreno versus Pantoja fight in terms of excitement. Like, flyweight doesn't get enough credit. They're the most technical fighters on the roster. And I'm going with Pantoja to win this fight by submission. Their first fight, it was a lot of back taking from Pantoja. And that's one thing I want you to look at because you'll notice he's one of the best back takers in the UFC. Because what he'll do is go for a double leg and then use that leg around the outside to get to the back of his opponent. So use that double leg and then step around the outside with his left leg to take the back. And he makes it look effortless at times, especially when he grabs you in and then seatbelts you, grabs the underhooks, and what that allows him to do is restrict the balance of his opponent so they can't use the arms to like push themselves upwards, and then he can use that to then try and get his body triangle in and then look for the submission. And striking wise, Brandon Royval has improved, but so has Pantoja. I know he might look sluggish at times, but that was against Brandon Moreno. If you look at the fight with Royval, which I want to do a lot of like looking into because they've fought before, you'll notice that he does what Darren Till does. It's not really versatile with the striking. It's a 1-2, but he will mix it up. For example, he might lead off with the cross and then go back to the 1-2 and then another 1-2 and then a cross. And then another 1-2, another 1-2, another 1-2, stop, and then a cross. Like, he uses that so effectively. And he has his hands kind of down low. And remember, Brandon Royval was like a technical brawler. Like, that's rare. That's an oxymoron. How can you be a technical guy if you're brawling? Well, what he does is, he waits for his opponent to come very close before firing off that knee that he did to Nicolau. Also tried to land on, what's his name, Pantoja, but it just missed. And then fire off with the hooks. So he times technically with that knee and then looks to brawl with his hooks. So that's the type of striking style he's got. And if there's not enough head movement from Royval, which there wasn't in that first fight with Pantoja, he might even drop him in the fight. Brandon Royval hasn't got a bad chin. Like, he can be aggressive at times. Look at that fight with Kaikara France. They were both going toe to toe. He gets dropped, spinning elbow happens, puts him down. He's very aggressive. And I think against a guy who's very good at taking the back, being aggressive is why he got submitted, because he threw that right hand, and because they're so close in the pocket, and we know how good Pantoja's back-taking ability is, he's able to just move his hands and interlock his hands around the side of his ribs and then bring him into him, and he's already taken the back that quick. And then he can start looking at bringing him down by trying to seatbelt him down to the ground. And it works, and that's what I'm saying. He's one of the most underrated fighters in the UFC ever. Extremely technical, and I think he's going to beat Brandon Royval again. So what I would pick for this fight would be over 1.5. Right, Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington. I'm going to make a disclaimer right now. I'm picking Colby Covington to win the fight, and for the people saying about inactivity, we have seen times where, and I know it's John Jones, and you're going to be like, oh, how are you comparing him? I'm not comparing him to John Jones. I'm just saying that you can take time out of the sport and it can actually benefit you, and then you can come back and do madnesses. And I think Colby Covington is going to do something Leon Edwards hasn't dealt with. Yes, he's dealt with grapplers applying pressure. Look what happened the last time when Usman, with damaged knees by the way, before he got knocked out, was pressuring him doing takedowns. But he doesn't chain grapple like Colby Covington, and I think that will be the problem. How will Leon Edwards feel when you have got Colby Covington drowning you against the cage and you feel helpless? If Colby shoots in like with a double leg like he does, you'll notice that he leaves his chin very open to be getting guillotined. And Wally Alves did it. Imagine if, I've got this weird thing, I'm not predicting it to happen, but I would not be surprised if Leon Edwards at one point just pulls a guillotine on him, because he has got that jiu-jitsu and a bit of grappling. And you'll see in that new fight with Usman, the third fight, okay, in that fight, he looked extremely good. There was no elevation issues, but you've got to remember, he had that mental edge where he's knocked him out. Usman's scared in his head, like, imagine if he knocks me out again after I dominate him. And he weren't able to do it. He was able to stop the takedowns, but Usman didn't apply that same pressure like he did back in Utah. And I think Colby will do that. And Colby, in my opinion, has better cardio than Usman. They both have great cardio, but Colby has even better. Like, he should have got a draw with Kamaru Usman, and you're probably thinking I'm a fanboy of Colby. Absolutely not. But I do think he's going to win by using that chain grappling, holding him against the cage, and making it quite boring, unfortunately. But that's what some fighters do. They are boring but end up winning. And I know he's getting older now, but I think that cardio is still there. And you're going to be like, yeah, he's inactive, but he's still been training. It's not like he sat there on the couch getting fat and out of shape. He wanted to be the backup fighter for UFC 285. I can't remember what it was. 286, the London one. And he made weight. No complaint. So he is still dedicated. I just don't know why he took so long out of the sport. And yeah, I can see why you think Leon Edwards could win. By far the superior striker. He has a better chance than Usman did at knocking out Colby, because he can use them kicks. He has the better footwork than Usman. He's got more of a technical approach. But what are you going to do, like I keep mentioning, when there's a guy in your face not allowing you to use the kicks? You're going to have to box toe to toe with him. And Colby has shown that his striking, as much as you can call him pillow hands, it's actually quite good. He outstriked Usman, in my opinion, apart from them first two rounds. Outstriked him. Even rocked him in one of the rounds, kind of. He stumbled him near the end of the round. And it's not really technical striking. It's just throwing a 1-2 and then throwing a kick. And it's just a cardio. All pace. It's just a extremely high cardio type of striking. And I think, could that work against Leon Edwards? Probably not, because his striking will get countered by Leon. But I think that's when he's going to use them striking entries to use them takedowns. bring him down to the ground, and do a Marab type of performance. And you're probably going to laugh and think, oh, Leon's easily going to win. So in this fight, I think this fight's going to be over 3.5 rounds I'm going with. You could say 2.5, but I'm saying over 3.5, and I think Colby's going to get a decision over Leon Edwards, and it will disappoint a lot of you. Well, maybe it might not. But yeah, that's who I'm going with to win. So, yes, I know he's smaller, and he's not as big as a Leon. Leon's stronger, but that takedown pressure, and we have seen that Leon Edwards can get hurt later on in a fight by getting a bit complacent against Nate Diaz. Colby won't do that to him. And when it weren't going his way against Usman, he looked like he was going to quit. But he threw the Hail Mary kick, and that was it. So, yeah. Thank you for watching. Talk to you soon.